My Lords, I thank the Noble Lady the Minister for her response, and indeed all noble lords who've taken part in this debate, which I think I apologise to those who said it wouldn't take more than an hour. Sorry about that. Responding to the Noble Lady the Minister, first of all, I really want to thank the Noble Lady for saying that the issues around the organic sector needs, the words I wrote down were, a lot of work. And I'm pleased that the Noble Lady the Minister has acknowledged that there's a real issue there and that the work needs to be done. I'm also pleased that the Noble Lady acknowledged, reflecting on the contributions of the Noble Lord Lord Wigley and the Noble Lord Lord Dodds, that there are big issues that need to be worked through with the devolved administrations. I make no apologies for returning to the issue of labelling. I would point out to the fact that the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee also returned very much to the issue of labelling, and I think we heard a very powerful contribution, particularly from the Noble Lady Baroness Freeman, about how this is not just around issues of safety or issues of the technology, it's about public confidence. And that was why, one of the reasons why I majored in starting on my introduction to the regret motion on that. I'm going to particularly note the comment the Noble Lady the Minister made in response, I think, to the Noble Lord Lord Trees, that the government doesn't have any plans to take this forward with animals. And I will, of course, point out that the Noble Lady herself did actually move an amendment when we were debating this under the previous government to take animals out of this Act altogether. And I very much hope that the Noble Lady will stay and the government will stay within that position. I do particularly want to highlight the contribution of the Noble Lord Lord Pack, who I'm honoured that this was his first post-maiden speech. And I think this will actually be considerably more significant than most such speeches, because I think any government department is going to have to look very carefully at its future use of polling and what kind of transparency it does with polling. And I would, in saying that, reflect on the contribution of the Noble Lord Lord Brencathra, that I think he was using polling which the Noble Lord Pack had pointed out the issues with. I'm just going to say a couple more things. The Noble Lord Cameron of Dillington and others spoke, and credit to them, Noble Lady Baroness Hayman, concern about the situation of Africa, a young and fast-growing population, etc. But I would point out that only 11 of 54 African nations have approved GM crops. And 2023, for example, was the UN Year of Millets. There are many traditional existing crops in Africa which have been swept aside in the colonial era that have huge potential in terms of public health, drought resistance and all the other characteristics that already exist and are there. And two very short final points. The Noble Lord Rooker and the Noble Lord Brencathra and others about whether we are talking about genetically modified organisms. The Act specifically defines precision breeding as genetic modification and then creates specific regulatory exemptions around it. There is no question that PBOs are genetically modified, legally or scientifically. And just on being able to identify so-called PBOs, the FSA ordered a literature review by an advisor to the government chemist that made it very clear that it is possible and should be done to create methods to detect organisms that have been genetically modified in this way. And radiation breeding is not used anymore since it's come up quite a lot. I can, however, count. And on the basis of that, with reluctance, I have no alternative but to withdraw my amendment.